Yes. This is Kal Kat, the Kal Katster. And this is a review of Matrix Resurrections. About that. It's basically a pretentious version of Free Guy. It has, I have to tell you about the rap song at the end first, because they start playing a kill shot, but it's like it's a dub of it, and this family of I would say they're half Indian, half white family sitting there, probably two brothers and their one brother's kids, and this thing starts playing, and they're like, oh, it's like a Disney afternoon version of Kill Shot. Oh, and it was all like, yeah, it really sucks. Because they couldn't make it, they toned down the explicit lyrics for one thing, but also the guy doing it is not the original performer. It's really obviously a cover. It's really bad. So that's like this really weird Superman ending scene. Spoilers. There's a Superman scene. Oh my goodness. I watched most of Doug Walker's review as well, and then stopped. And now I'm going to do my review. So it's not as bad as the third one. I'll say that for it. Third one was terrible. So the second one was spoofed by friends at the church group years ago. Their dorm became Moyer, the Matrix. That's the hall they were from. That was actually clever. This was not, however. Robert Patrick looked like Adam Savage. And at least one cast member in there somewhere. And it wasn't San Francisco. They claimed it was in the movie, but it looked like Toronto. Yeah, there were no hills and valleys. It was just flat. And the bridge they kept showing was clearly not the Bay Bridge at all, but some other random bridge. No, where the hell they were supposed to be. But yeah. So, yeah, Lana Wachowski. In the past 22 years since the original, the Wachowski brothers became the Wachowski siblings, because one of them got a sex change and became Lana Wachowski, the anime character. I saw at a convention once, many years ago. It's bizarre. She's bizarre, yeah. And then the brother later also had one, so they both became like, they both had a sex change. She got to direct the fourth movie, which is very self-aware of itself. In this version of the movie, spoiler alert, it doesn't matter. In this version of the movie, it's cool that the White Rabbit song is actually integrated into the movie, so it's not just part of the trailer. That was interesting. They had a montage with the White Rabbit song. Somebody almost gave that up last night at the Christmas party, family Christmas party, which fizzled out about halfway through. It wasn't a party. It was briefly a party. There was briefly drinking and booze and revelry. Then half the cousins left, and then it became a not party. Kind of like the Matrix movie. And then we just opened presents and ate food. But it almost was a party, but it kind of fizzled out. It became not a party. It's interesting that one of them did go to Second Start Pine Hill, and is roughly my age, but separate, but has my birthday, but is separated by 30 years, 40 years or so. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, it's but other than that, nobody in the Matrix was like that. So we have Neo's character is back to being Tom on the end of the story. Tom, of course, Tom the tit sucker. The guy from he's the guy from the Big Red One, from my fan film stuff about sin at school in the 7th grade. The Wachowskis apparently knew of me. I don't know how that is, but they did. The whole Matrix saga is basically a rewrite of the Red One series, but with red pill and blue pill and all that stuff. But in my version, it wasn't pills; it was coke and pot. But they changed it for the movie. Anyway, it's not really, but it was very similar. There was no actual drug abuse in the fiction story. That was just fiction. We were immature teenagers. Thought it would be funny. Anyway, so preteens and then teenagers. Preteens. Early teens. Yeah. But yeah, there's weed. Yeah, those kids in the 7th grade, their idea of weed was to grab some ivy, claim that it was, or tea or something. Now, Matrix Resurrections, yeah, I kind of agree with the critics out there that were saying that it's mid-60s in terms of, out of a possible 100, even 50s. It quickly loses its luster. The first act with the Allison thing and the whole Keanu Reeves supposedly thinks that he's like a suicidal, paranoid person who somehow is a game designer at the same time. I don't know how that works. Who has designed the Matrix films as a game and put himself in it and Trinity in it. And Trinity is a housewife in this one, but there's some chemistry between them. They don't know what it is. And apparently, well, they gave some stuff away in the trailers. Just spoilers. I guess the review does have spoilers, yes. So yeah, obviously the machines must have rebuilt them. I mean, clearly they rebuilt them. Why would they do that? They kind of try to explain that some of the machines turned and became good guys, but they didn't explain it very well. Also, there's a different Smith and a different Morpheus. That's explained in Morbius. So yeah, there's a different Morbius, and it's a different guy. They couldn't get Lawrence Fishburne. They couldn't get the guy that played Smith either because I think he's dead. Or no, I think he's still alive. He's the Twin Peaks guy. But I think he's still alive. Yeah, they introduce a character who is a couple of new characters, including a Lana Wachowski-looking character who isn't really her. Yeah. It's just somebody playing like her. And there's a character called Bug who turns out to be somebody else, although it's not clear whether it's her or the guy. It's funny because the internet slang has changed, so they threw in like stuff like LOL and stuff like that, indicating that in this universe, like that other stuff happened later, so they would have known, even though it wasn't in the original. And the computers were really old looking in the original. They do hint to that in the office room scene, because yeah, in 1999 they barely had IMAX yet. And, you know, just look at it. So yeah, yeah, the cyberpunk thing. Yeah, and then like Doug Walker was pointing out in his review that it was very samey in parts. But also he kept saying over and over again that it was clever that they were doing callbacks. I disagree. I don't think it was clever doing the callbacks, because they were just too much. There were too many of them. And it was like that Halloween 2018 remake, in that they did some callbacks in that. Apparently it's even worse than Halloween Kills, but I did not see Halloween Kills. The idea of doing a hard reboot of a show and then pretending the other show didn't happen. Halloween 2018 did that. I think the Nightmare on Elm Street remake before that did it, to an extent. And it's a lot like Free Guy. It's kind of a similar plot. Free Guy doesn't realize he's an NPC, goes through the motions, and then realizes he's in the game, and this and that's going on. It's very similar to Free Guy. So like movies before and in the past, there's this sort of crossover thing going on. Yeah, it's a mess. It's it's kind of a mess. First act is good. There are some callbacks. Some of them are really bad callbacks. I don't think they're clever at all. They're like, oh, it's clever because he wrote the video game that the Matrix movies were. No, that's not clever. That's sloppy writing. That's not clever. That's sloppy writing. We're just going to wink and pretend the other ones didn't happen. So that means that the bad one was written by his co-creator and not him. They were going to make a part 4 and reference Warner Brothers. Yeah, I see what you're doing. Done better in Wreck-It Ralph, and Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet. Actually, earlier, a couple of years ago, Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet was done better. I would have called that movie Ralph Wrecks the Internet, but they chose Ralph Breaks the Internet. Wrecks the Internet makes more sense. They didn't want to do that. So yeah, they referenced the Disney princesses in that, callbacks. Disney did say kind of a similar thing. Kind of like how Shrek referenced Disney because it didn't like Disney. That's kind of the case with this one. It's like Shrek. So you have this. Yeah, the Matrix was based on the cyberpunk story, is loosely based on works of William Gibson and that kind of thing. They were like the virtual reality world. If reality is really a virtual computer in your computer, and it's really a Matryoshka controlling it all. And it does beg the question, how and why? And you can't get much battery power out of human beings that you've grown in time pods. You just can't. There's not enough energy in the human circulatory system to do anything really. But yeah, excluding the weird leaps of logic, and there's this general lady that pops up, and she's like annoying, and yeah, and she does stuff, and this little general lady. Also, the little kid from the first one shows up as an adult because it's been 20 years. The third one, yeah. So as an adult, even though they said it's been 60 years in the dialogue, they should have said 20, and then they made him look old. Keanu Reeves looked old at one point. Kind of like he's been rebooted by I guess the good guy machines that side up with the Iosians from Io, city of Io. 1-0. Zion got fucked again, I guess. Or something. Anyway, it's not so much that the action scenes are boring per se. It's that where they go from point A to point B doesn't really gel too well. Yeah, where they're going doesn't gel too well. It's just a weird sort of. It's just it's an odd duck. It's on a par with, I guess, part 2. It's not as good as part 1, but it's on a par with part 2. Also, it's really obvious that there's a stunt double person doing Keanu Reeves' martial arts in this, because that's why they put him in a beard and put hair on him and made him look different when he does all the fight scenes. And in some other scenes, when they show him from a distance doing a fight scene, and they slightly blur it because they want to make it, because it's obviously a stunt double. They couldn't get somebody that looks kind of like him, and he doesn't really look like him. And they're showing the fight that they recreate the fight scene in the bamboo house. They recreate They keep saying they're going to recreate bullet time, but then they don't really technically. They do other things with it, because bullet time was the wraparound mocap thing. And what they did is they set up a circle of cameras, and it was actually mocap. It was actually early mocap, and it was they set up the series of cameras to go off and click all the way around to make it look like it's 360 degrees, and then they're during the one scene, and then during the scene with the bullets whizzing by. They kind of do that in this one, but you can tell they CG'd it. And it doesn't look as good as it did in 1999. It doesn't look as good. It's something wrong with it. Also, there is ever since Man of Steel, they've been trying to use this weird CG effect where you have a dissolving character. Probably actually since Spider-Man 3, where they had the Sandman, because of the same technology. This sort of, and they used it on Star Trek Discovery with the screens and the de-resing proto-matter, programmable matter and all that. A programmable matter holographic alien does not look creepy. It looks fake, even with the CG buds, especially if you blow it up to 70 millimeter. It was really weird in Man of Steel that they did that a lot. It was in there a lot. So they have this character in there that can do that. He's like, if you're going to do that, go the T2 route and say, okay, instead of him being made up of little particles all over the place, because it looks fake, it looks really bad, have him be liquid, like a liquid metal thing. They'll just look better. Have them be mannequin-like. Don't have them look like that, because it's too uncanny. Have them be a little uncanny, but not too uncanny. Yeah, I tell they used a lot of money on CG on this. Actually, they saved a lot on it by filming it in what looked like Toronto, in a town, where you have where they could film a lot of the sequences in a city or an old abandoned building. Probably use Georgia somewhere for that. Some of the wreckage from the storms years ago. Hollywood keeps using those old abandoned buildings. But a lot of it was sets and set to set. They wink at the set that's inside the train thing from, I think, part 2. Going through the mirror was kind of cool. There was some stuff that worked, some stuff that really, really didn't. And the one Doug Jones was kind of right on the idea that it started to get kind of dull and confusing when they went into the machine world. Because, they just didn't explain what they were doing. They had programmable matter in there, and they were able to make strawberries or something. It's like, why are we paying attention to this? Clearly, the Wachowski siblings were in love with their own stuff by part 2. And then part 3 was just Space Jesus, Neo. Now it has to be Space Jesus, Neo, and Trinity together. They got to get back together and fight off the bad guys. Really simple plot. They're going to. So. It's not a spoiler. But the some of the other stuff is for. So it's kind of funny. There was a scene in which Trinity beats up on a guy being an asshole and regenerates him and beats up on him. And it's like but if she represents one of the Wachowski brothers, she actually has the strength of a man, but she's been changed to a woman. So it's not anti-trans, it's opposite of that. It's fully trans. Transformer. See? And if she is trans, then she can't have children, because technically, unless the robots did it. It's artificial space insemination. But no. Does beg the question, if the machines had Category 2 level technology, which would be the ability to control a whole solar system, that's what they imply. So seemingly a whole planet. Let's say they're Category 1. They control a whole planet. Then they're not on Io. They just go to a city called Io. They're on Earth. But it's like, it's now 20 years, 60 years later. So if in The Matrix Part 1, it was 2199, and now it's 60 years after that. It's 2250 or so. So they're going to run into the Transformers in the other universe. No, they're not. That would be... Oh, I suspect the machine squid things would lose against a fight with the Transformers or the Borg. They're similar to the Borg, though. The Borg would beat them. Because, But they convey emotions through the robots, but that's confusing. Our emotions will tell what we're doing. And the acting started to get stilted. I think what it was, though, is that they did a lot of reshoots on this movie during the COVID time. It was actually finished last year. A lot of reshoots on it. And they changed a lot of stuff. So I'm thinking all the parts where it was cool, and they did reshoots, and they did the game thing, and that all that was done later in reshoots. I think that they strengthened the third act because the test audience didn't like it. They strengthened the first act because the test audience didn't like it. And they put more action in the third act because the audience didn't like that there wasn't enough action. So they put all the action in the third act. And they had a helicopter bike chase. They imitated the first movie. Great. Only somehow not as cool. CG, Warner Brothers, I don't know. But it was like, okay, you did this in one of them, the first one. So, in the same way that the new Star Wars with J.J. Abrams kind of just retconned over the other stuff. Similar to that, too. And or the Wrath of Khan thing. Did Abrams help on this? No, I don't think so. But it's just it's an odd. It has issues. It has pacing and story issues, like the other ones did, because they were clearly in love with their idea of bringing them back as a reminiscent of Wonder Woman 84 from last year. Now, if they wanted to make it exactly like that, Trinity would have turned into somebody else at some point. But she didn't, fortunately. So they knew not to do that. Maybe that was in the rewrites. Maybe they said, no, we better not. Yeah, we better not do that. People didn't like that movie last year. But yeah, Keanu Reeves clearly had a stunt double. Yeah, and they had to show the fight scene slightly out of focus, like was mentioned. Shaky cam stuff. Why are they doing that? Shaky cam does not work with fight scenes. Stop doing that. It does not work. You can't you can't say okay like the actors are fighting and if just throwing out stuff at the screen and saying stuff at the screen, yay, and that's not how to this wasn't John Wick, but he was trying to be John Wick. So in that movie he was doing some of his own stuff. But it had issues with the fight scenes too. When they looked fake, they looked fake. When they kind of looked good, they were a little blurry. I'm not sure why they were doing that. Probably just to spice it up. Probably that the earlier version of the script didn't have enough fight scenes, so they just made a bunch of them, even if they didn't make sense in the story, to them to be doing that. And it also begs the question, if they're jacked into the robot computer thing and they've already retrieved the girl, why are they still fighting? It does beg that question. It's like, okay, you've rescued Neo and Trinity at one point. Pull them out. Yeah, then there's no fight scene. If they had to show the big fight scene, that's probably what they reshot, is there? No, we have to have the fight scene in there. Make it last longer, because there's nothing happening on the spaceship in the real world. Yeah. Why not make why not make both universes equally interesting? So Matrix didn't do that originally. Yeah. It's like when Neo screws up the ship and breaks through the fourth wall in part 2. And the Matrix is like Matrix Reloaded, And he zaps the ship and knocks it out of the sky. It's like, then we thought at the time, Mark Scards and I thought at the time, it's like, this would be way cooler if they just said, okay, the second movie as it ended is another level of the Matrix game, which they kind of addressed in this movie. It's another level, and the third movie is another level of the game. So they did address that in this movie. They did take the Mark Scards route and Kal Kat route. They said, okay, it was actually a game, that it was in his head, but it was real. Well, the aliens are actually, but it's not a game because the aliens or robots have programmed it. So it's real to them. Their reality is real to them. It does make the question, why would they bother with that? What's their motivation for keeping humanity alive? And how did they scorch the sky exactly? They never really explained that. One of the other ideas that we had for the third one was that what we would do is do the cyberpunk and Ghost in the Shell angle, which we stole from Ghost in the Shell sequel, is that it's not Earth, but it's an alien group trying to imitate Earth. So they break out of they go through the door, and it shows a Twilight Zone, Outer Limits kind of thing, and they go through the door, and they discover in the third level that, no, he wasn't really a super god being thing at all, and he wasn't actually there, and they weren't actually on Earth. They walked through the door there, and they airlocked the other reality into the game. The architect should have been at the end of the whole thing. They punch through the hole in the door and meet the god in charge of it. That would have been cooler instead of Neo being a god. That was kind of dumb. And blinded. And Trinity was stabbed in the first one. Yeah, this is a mess. So I gave some of it away. I gave some of it not away. Yeah, it's not going to be on the Claro Awards, so you don't need to add it to it. It's a solid 62% out of 100. That would give it a score rating of 2.5 stars, and roughly, about 50%, a little over 50%, 2.5, almost 3. But the fight scenes are weak. Derivative. It's not clever to be derivative. It only works if you're intentionally doing that. Why would the why wouldn't the Matrix be more clever and think of other stuff for them to do? If their fictional world is just a boring city, why would they? They're not very original or imaginative at all. Let's have them go to a coffee shop and talk. Oh, I know that must have been added later. That was added. That had to be added later. Because they were clearly out of their element and they looked older and stuff. That had to have been added later. It was just game developer guy in the room and all that. I think they threw that in later. Because then, yeah. Probably because after they saw the Free Guy preview, they were like, let's copy it. Yeah, because that part didn't seem to fit anywhere. And then the game thing was kind of dropped. And then they can go elsewhere and do something else. So, yeah. It would have been more interesting if the other guy popped up. He sort of popped up later in another body or something. So they were doing the Wonder Woman 84 thing in a way. The game guy. Yeah, he was like Smith or something, and the other guy was half Smith and half Neo, and it didn't make any sense. And then how did he get where he was going, and what were the Gulons or whatever they were? The robot zombie people that had Borg eyes at one point? What? Okay. Yeah, you ripped that off from Ghost in the Shell too, didn't you? Yeah. But yeah, the series, not the movies, the series. Yes. Anyway, and a little Cowboy Bebop thrown in there for good measure. I have not seen the Netflix show, don't ask. Anyway, so, I haven't seen it yet. Anyway, that was my review of The Matrix Resurrections. Yeah, 2.5 stars. Yeah, go see it in theaters. Sure, why not? Don't go see it on HBO Max. It's not worth $14.